everyone. Welcome to an Intel FutureGen broadcast. Quickly, before we go into our guest and the Q&A we've got prepared, I'm going to quickly explain what the Intel FutureGen program is. It's something we run between ourselves and Intel, ourselves being NSE. Each year we take 20 students interested in entering the esports and gaming industry once they graduate, and then they'll get access to events, private sessions with industry experts, and they'll each get an industry buddy. But alongside that, we run a series of broadcasts open to everyone with the aim to shed a light on the industry and the roles within it. So that brings me on to our first guest, which is Owen McIntyre. Thank you, Owen, for joining us. Owen is the marketing manager for Xbox UK&I at Microsoft. How are you doing, Owen?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm really excited to just have a chat with you today, as we kind of already mentioned off camera. And I think this will be a really, really interesting opportunity. And as you mentioned on the Intel FutureGen kind of cohort, I was part of that last year where I was one of the mentors, and I had an absolute riot of a time doing that. So it's really awesome to be able to kind of contribute back.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for your support and agreeing to come on. So let's just start right from the top. Career path. How did you end up working in the gaming industry?
So I have a kind of slightly less traditional path, I think, than many, but I feel like most people kind of say that when they come on here. I started at Microsoft back in 2018. Before that, I was a kind of very typical student, did my GCSEs and began college. I was originally studying to be kind of towards an engineering path as a career, because I've kind of got a passion for motorsports, technology, and kind of the STEM world. But due to kind of unforeseen reasons, I actually ended up dropping out of college at 16 and looking for apprenticeships and work. And I'd been working for quite a few years for a few different companies. And I was lucky enough to land within one of the Microsoft apprenticeships. I was doing a level 3 apprenticeship in digital marketing, which was a really awesome opportunity. I worked within the central marketing organization. So where that is within Microsoft is kind of, you've got industry leads and area leads, and they kind of dictate the marketing within the local region of Microsoft. And within my time doing that, I kind of always knew in the back of my brain, I want to get a degree. I want to take my education further. I'd like to kind of be I'd like to have the paper to go against kind of my qualifications and my experience of being here. So I was working within the business, and I was looking around of, okay, maybe I don't want to do my level 6 in the same area I'm already in. I've always had a passion for gaming. I've always been kind of really, really into playing both kind of esports style games. So a lot of kind of Counter-Strike growing up, and League of Legends kind of more recently, and now Valorant. But I actually was shadowing the events lead for Xbox at the time. It started with an internal event we did called Family Day, where it's just, as you can imagine, Microsoft families come in, play Xbox for the day, and kind of sweets and food and all those kinds of things. And off the back of that, I was really lucky that she let me shadow her for kind of the next year, where I got more industry exposure. I went to, for example, we did awesome launches like Gears Inc., where people could get Gears of War tattoos for Gears of War 5, kind of all the way to first party events like XO19, which was like a really, really awesome moment in our career. And then I, through doing that, was introduced to different people within the business, including the person that's now my manager, where we kind of came up with this agreement and this relationship that led to me kind of going on to the level 6 degree apprenticeship now, which the kind of initial thought was that I was going to go and do events, which the second week of my level 6 apprenticeship was the first week of lockdown. So it kind of threw a bit of a spanner in the works, but it was, you have to take these things as they come. We've done a lot since then, and we've kind of molded my role around that and what the business needs and so on and so forth. But it's been a really, really awesome opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how long have you been with Xbox now?
So I've actually been at Xbox 3 years as of this week, I'm pretty sure. It's been a bit of a wild ride throughout the whole thing, but I've had an absolute riot of a time doing it.
That's awesome. So your current role, tell us a little bit about what you're kind of up to and what your role actually covers.
Cool. So yeah, I'm on paper, I'm a marketing manager for Xbox UK&I at Microsoft. So like to get one thing, the UK&I is UK and Ireland region. I look after and work in specifically that kind of area and activities and campaigns in that area. As mentioned, like events is very much part of the role, but post COVID, I think we all know that events look slightly different, and that's again the way the world is working. So I've also done a lot of work, particularly on campaigns and partnerships, marketing campaigns. That is, I've done a lot of work with people like industry leading partners in the esports space, in the fast moving consumer goods space, in kind of cosmetics. So like the OPI partnership we did about a year ago, which was a really, really awesome one to get involved with. Or we did the Fnatic Game Pass Invitational. So obviously that's one of the kind of highlights of my career being there, because I'm a like kind of die-hard Fnatic fan. So the day that one was kind of proposed in front of me, I was really, really on board with supporting that. So the kind of what it comes down to is events, marketing campaigns, and sort of general marketing responsibilities, everything from marketing operations to all the way to kind of a little bit creative, a little bit of social here and there. And I work under some really, really awesome teams who they've kind of given me that freedom and that exposure that if I kind of either want to try something or I think I'll be good at something, they're like, yeah, you're more than welcome to get involved. And that's been really, really appreciated on my behalf.
That's awesome. So your role is very kind of all encompassing, because I know some structures, they might have like a digital marketing team and other things like that. Do you kind of sit between those teams, or like is the marketing team kind of split out into a few different?
Yeah. So in Xbox, like it's quite a narrow team. We're quite lean, as we might say. So we don't have a huge amount of staff specifically within the UK. We kind of have two main areas, or maybe three, including channel. So retail is really, really big for us, but that's actually one of the few areas that I don't get as involved with, which, that is how do we distribute and how do we market through people like Game, Currys, Argos, these really key kind of high street partners like you'd see within the UK and Ireland. And then the kind of other two teams are the marketing team. So some people might be aware of, the awesome marketing campaigns that we've done over the past couple of years, like the Saatchi Masterpiece campaign, or kind of the Xbox Gen 9 launch with the Series X and the Series S. That is the integrated marketing team. And then I sit within the category marketing team, which almost acts as that link between the two of them. They're responsible for the three main categories of Xbox, which are hardware, services, and games. And then what I do is I work with the respective leaders in each of those categories to kind of link up the marketing activities between the marketing team and the category managers themselves based on their priorities.
Yeah, awesome. So you originally started out not kind of looking to do marketing, and you said you were kind of looking at more engineering roles. Why did you kind of go and pivot into marketing?
I think it was a combination of a few things. I think as a young person in education, it's really easy to be influenced by those around you, what you actually want versus what you kind of think you want. And I think that they will always leave an impression on you, and that's a good thing, right? Like they kind of mold you into the people you want to be. But I think I knew deep down I've always really liked marketing activities. I've always really liked creative. I've really liked advertising, and growing up as what we would call like digital native, where you've always got like YouTube, Twitch, whatever your preferred platform is around you, you can kind of see how that would make an impact on your kind of life growing up. And I thought it would be really awesome to get involved with that kind of thing. Again, like influencer culture was another one where I was like, this is something I really want to get involved with. And the other part of it is like being in an engineering scenario and kind of situation within the college. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't right. I was doing these kind of tasks and this schooling that it just didn't really click. And actually going back now and having the exposure that I've had now within Microsoft, even within my marketing role, I feel as versed towards my engineering path actually. And I've been lucky enough to get involved with many kind of pretty awesome projects over the past couple of years, both in Microsoft and outside of Microsoft. So it was just that sense of trying to find my own journey.
And what would you say you've kind of like learned from that process? Like, what have you learned from that journey?
I think the experiences of others is always really important. I think like having a strong network around you, and I'm really big on mentorship, which is again why the kind of FutureGen program stuck out so much to me. I'm really lucky that I've got this kind of awesome network of mentors both in and outside of Microsoft, and I've had awesome leadership since I've been here. And I've come from, you know, a pretty businessy background where people are, you can kind of just go to them with that general advice, and whether you take it or not is not necessarily the importance, but it's just about taking it in and learning from it and then making your own interpretation of that. That's been really useful. And also don't just hop on trends for the sake of trends. I think sometimes there's a sense of like, if you find your own journey, find what you're good at, what you enjoy, what brings you energy, and vice versa, what you don't enjoy, what doesn't bring you energy, what you find draining, those kinds of things. It just helps to kind of move you in that right direction. And it's never an objective of finding like what's perfect. I just think it's a sense of finding like what's working.
Yeah, totally agree with that. You kind of got to take the opportunities as they come. So, you know, for the students watching this and they're thinking, gosh, this sounds like a great job that I would want to maybe be involved in, like how, in terms of entry level roles, I think, how do you find those? And from your experience, where do you think that can progress to?
I think the great thing about marketing is that it is so broad that it can come from so many areas. Like I'm really big on the fact that events are always a great way to meet people, and that those relationships and kind of I would never dismay communication and relationships with other people, because you just never know what opportunities they have the exposure to that you might be grateful. I feel like that sense of broadness, and then actually, for example, when you're looking for roles, you might the job titles might not matter. I think that's a really good thing to kind of point out in this day and age. There's a lot of roles with especially if you're not from a technical background, you know, with big scary titles like analyst and specialist and all these kinds of things, that actually, when you get down to it, they are realistically just like a fancy title. If you look at the roles and responsibilities a couple of years ago, you'd have put kind of associate or executive on the exact same title. And I think that finding what you're good at and that work experience and that exposure and these people in the industry that you can say, okay, I really like the sound of what you do. That sounds awesome. What is the junior version of that role? Or for example, if they're a manager within a business, you go, okay, they're a line manager to these people. What do those people look like? And is there anyone underneath them, or what would the junior version of their role be? And I think that's really helped me for looking at kind of my role within Xbox and where I sit within our undeniably large structure, but I can also see the whole way to the top, right? I can see like what Phil Spencer's role is in comparison to my role, and how what I do will impact kind of the global business. And I really, really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with your kind of disregarding job titles to a certain degree, obviously, because they also seem to change company to company. So depending on their structure, you might have an exec, which could actually be like a social media executive, could be quite junior, and then in another company that could be really senior, and it just really depends on the size and how that company is structured. So yeah, definitely looking at the roles and responsibilities is key for sure. So what do you think, is there something you wish you had known before kind of starting your career? For students, like if we're talking specifically from a marketing angle, is there something you would known kind of before stepping into this career path?
Yeah, 100%. I didn't realize I didn't even know what an agency was. And I feel like that's one of those things when you talk to people, that's kind of a bit mind blowing. But understanding like how big agencies are within the space is a huge thing now. I work with some really fantastic agencies being at Microsoft, and you know, understanding like the role that they play in the execution of these things, and the amount of people that I've talked to, again, like about their experiences, and they're also in the marketing field, but in such a different role to me. And that, you know, in my head, they represent a kind of another major organization, and they say, oh no, actually I work for, you know, this smaller London-based agency. I think that's really, really interesting to me. And I would never disregard agencies in the world, especially like there are a lot of agencies breaking kind of boundaries and really showing that they are more than just like a tool. They are almost like the change makers themselves. Particularly, I'm a big fan of Race Service, based out of Los Angeles, who are kind of motorsport. They work with EA on quite a lot of cool projects, and a few other kind of major players within the space. And I think they're a really, really awesome place to be. And I think if you can see these young people kind of actually able to make a brand for themselves and make strides within their careers, and if I'd known that that was a thing, then I think my career could have potentially looked completely different.
Yeah. So even though Xbox obviously is such a huge, well-known company within our communities, like, are there any less obvious goals that Xbox has that you could kind of shed a light on?
Yeah, 100. I think so. But just like the Xbox I grew up with, with the Xbox 360 versus the Xbox that I'm now marketing for is so vastly different.
Yeah.
And obviously it's been through its journey, particularly over, I would have said, kind of the past 10, 15 years, where, it's definitely had its ups and downs. And I don't think we're ever silent about that. But, watching where we've gone from a kind of, let's call it a gaming box provider, where you'd go out to a shop and you'd buy this piece of kind of plastic and metal and you plug it in. And now we're actually this big major platform where our kind of objective is to reach as many gamers as possible in kind of expansion of that space. It's actually been really, really interesting as a journey to be part of. And I feel like it's much more relevant to a kind of global, ongoing, developing career than just the idea of like, oh, I sell this product and this product just goes out every couple of years, and obviously it changes, it evolves. But things like the introduction of like Game Pass has been, and I worked a lot on Game Pass when I first joined Xbox, and I've absolutely adored every second of that. I think it's been a really, really awesome goal of ours, and obviously our expansion into PC gaming as well. Like, I grew up a big PC gamer through particularly kind of that school, college, like GCSE college era, and that kind of expansion into that space felt very natural for me. And so like being able to offer my expertise, and with our recent partnership with Riot, I felt really at home, because it's just, you've had this kind of brand that you've idolized, even in a space, like you say, obviously major organization like Xbox, and I idolize a lot of what we do, but that's a brand that are just doing very different in their own stride. And I think it's really awesome to kind of work with those guys and see what they're doing and see how we can all work together for that expansion into that space.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know we haven't, this wasn't actually one of the questions I sent over to you, but I'm just thinking of the back of something you said. Could you tell us maybe about like one of your favorite projects that you've worked on during your time there? Something you've really enjoyed working on?
Yeah, so I touched on the Fnatic Game Pass invitation.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Like, I absolutely adored that project. It was a collaboration between ourselves, Fnatic, the esports organization, and PC Specialist, the kind of e-commerce PC configurator brand. And those are some of the loveliest people work in those organizations. That was one of the first things. Like, in my time here, I've met so many people that I would call like lifelong friends, and I've absolutely loved working with them. And that project was awesome for me because, I'd been at Xbox for, maybe a year, and I was being given these relatively high value campaigns right at my feet. And the category leader at the time for services was just like, go have fun, you're the expert here, you're the one that understands the space, like, you pick what it looks like. And I've had quite a few people off the back of that kind of talk to me about like what came off it. And we had like Connor Ball from the Vamps like just sort of like following me on Twitter and be like, I so want to be part of this. That was like mind-blowing moment. I was like, okay, maybe this job is definitely very cool. And then the other project, just to touch on, that was awesome, is our collaboration with OPI Nails, the nail polish brand from the US. That expansion into UK felt very impactful, and I really enjoyed that. It's very common of kind of Gen Z to find this level of like social kind of enterprise through working and through business, and to work on a project like that where the goal was to be more inclusive, particularly in a space like gaming where it's undeniable that there is problems with gender splits and race splits and all these kinds of things. And actually to be able to say, look, we want to get all these creators from all these different backgrounds. Like, I still paint my nails quite often to this day, and I think off the back of that project, like, that was really, really fun to be a part of. And the amount of people that I talk to now that are like, you have any of it left over? And I'm like, no, trust me, you're not the first person to ask.
That's awesome. Favorite color to paint your nails?
Oh, I like light blue. My girlfriend would attest that I like light blue on both of us.
Nice.
Or maybe white, maybe white.
That's awesome. So there's going to be lots of students watching this starting to go to events, maybe industry events, and kind of looking at expanding their contacts and networking, or starting to network. What tips do you have for expanding your network?
I feel like this is an area of like particular interest to me. I've got one friend that always makes fun of me for networking, just like constantly, no matter where we are, no matter where we go to. It's always, hi, I'm Owen, I work at Xbox. Like, what do you do? But like one of my first things is about removing ambiguity, both from kind of the detail and communication. Like if you don't know what you're talking about, either be clear that you don't know what you're talking about, or try and understand that gap that you're missing. And what I mean by that is, attention to detail is going to be one of the first things that's really important. If you are approaching someone new and you know things about them, make sure you know those things are correct about them. So for example, if you're going to send off a cold email, make sure you're spelling their name right. Make sure you're spelling their job title right. Make sure you have a kind of rough idea of what they do. And if they don't, it's fine to say, actually, like, I don't understand. I'd love to get that 20-minute chat in to hear more about what you do, or can you kind of point me in the direction of someone? And I've had so many people now from a kind of doing exactly that, where I've said like, hey, like what you do is awesome. Like, can we have a bit of a chat? Or I really want to kind of understand it further. And then just communication in general. We have a thing at Microsoft called aka.ms/no hello, which you can find online, which is this idea of never approach anyone without understanding what you want out of them. Don't just cold message them and say, hey, because you're not going to get a response. And they are genuinely some of the loveliest people in this industry. And I will always stand by that and always attest by that. I've been treated so well, particularly like for the people I've met. And every time I talk to different people, it's just an absolutely kind of thriving conversation. But I feel like if you know what you want and you don't try and hide that, that's the best way to get out of them kind of what you want. And then my other things would be consider emotion. Emotion is one of those things. If you're going to go to someone during a particularly busy period of their business, don't expect rapid response. You've got to understand that they are a busy person and they have their own jobs to be doing, and you might not necessarily be their priority. And I think that if you can understand both their emotion and your emotions, and you can kind of step back from it and say, yeah, that's actually a reasonable response, and we'll get back to this. Confidence is king as well. Like, that's really important. What's the worst that can happen? Understand that you are a kind of expert in yourself and you have knowledge that no one else will kind of have that perspective on. And then the final one is just be kind, because at the end of the day, if you're kind and someone's not kind back, you're kind of the winner, even if you kind of don't get what you initially expected. And again, this is an industry with so many people willing to offer their expertise and their time and their energy, that if you're not getting those positive responses off the back of them, then chances are you're not missing out on a ton.
Yeah, I mean, some absolutely great advice there. I think, yeah, everyone in this industry, generally speaking, is like super, super nice and lovely, and people will give you the time if they can. And like you said, will share their expertise willingly. So yeah, never be afraid to approach someone. But yeah, that was awesome. So we're going to start to close the session out. If anyone's interested in the previous FutureGen conversations we've had on this channel, you can go to the Intel FutureGen hub on the NSE website, which is nsc.gg. It's on the little sidebar. And you can see all the past sessions we've had on there. Owen, do you want to plug anything yourself?
Nothing on top of mind. Again, I'm obviously big fan of the Xbox brand, and obviously that's part of my career. So I'll always push the Xbox channels and Xbox On, where we kind of release all of our kind of very authentic content, and we live stream most days. So that's always a really big thing. And then I think the NSE kind of pages will have the links to most of my channels, where you can always follow me. And if anyone has kind of questions or top of minds, I'm always relatively open. Again, I like to think I am also that busy person, so I might not always be the quickest responder, but I'll always try and get back to you if you've got kind of top of mind.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thanks so much for chatting with me today, Owen. And thanks everyone for watching. And we'll be back, I think, in 2 weeks' time with another session. So goodbye, everyone.